Everybody, we have a great show for you today. We're going to start the show out by playing this clip that has gone viral recently and resurfaced from, I believe, January of 2020, where Donald Trump walks out with Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum, says that Klaus has done a fantastic job, and goes on to explain why he's there in the first place. Let's take a watch.
Mr. President, what is your message to senators at your trial?
We're going to call climate change a hard
Why is it better to be here in Davos than in Washington, D.C.?
Well, we're here meeting with world leaders, the biggest, most important people in the world, and we're bringing back tremendous business in the United States, and they're all here to see. I'll be making a speech, and then we'll be leaving shortly. But I think it's very important. The other's just a hoax. It's the witch hunt that's been going on for years, and frankly, it's disgraceful. But we look forward to being here. Klaus has done a fantastic job. And again, we're meeting with the biggest companies in the world, the biggest businesses in the world, and world leaders, all for the benefit of the United States. We look forward to the meetings.
Why not have witnesses this
Is rhetoric on climate change, Mr. President?
Well, I'm a big believer in the environment. The environment to me is very important. Thank you.
One thing I find very interesting is Trump gave his speech at Davos, and a lot of Trump supporters say his speech was railing against the global establishment. But according to Ivanka Trump's tweet, that was about exactly a week after President Donald Trump partnered with Moderna to start working on the COVID vaccine 2 months before the lockdown. Fascinating stuff. Here's my quick Instagram reel on the topic, and then I'm going to go through the contraceptive legislation that everybody was talking about. Democrats are going, oh my goodness, Republicans are trying to take away contraceptives. They're crazy. They're evil. So I actually printed out the legislation, highlighted it, read it, and I'm going to go over it and tell you things that they're not telling you about what it actually says. Fascinating stuff. We'll be live in a second, right after this.
Klaus has done a fantastic job. And again, we're meeting with the biggest companies in the world.
So this clip has been going viral recently for obvious reasons. A lot of people are rushing to Trump's defense saying, no, he talked against them in the speech. And a lot of people aren't buying it, saying he said what he said. Here's what I'll say. Trump came into office as a vaccine safety skeptic. And once he got $1 million from Pfizer and banks for his inauguration costs, all of a sudden that went out the window, and he hired one of the biggest pharmacy lobbyists / executives from Eli Lilly to run HHS. That same pharmacy lobbyist that Donald Trump put in the highest position in the health land was the one who declared the emergency, and Donald Trump all last year has been one of the biggest vaccine salesmen.
In a certain way, I'm the father of the vaccine because I was the one that pushed it.
I think it's great that the base is starting to ask Trump questions. So what's the point of trying to quash that honest criticism and journalism to act like Trump doesn't have some questions to answer and shouldn't show to the voters that he has learned his lesson and changed, versus he's just a stubborn, self-centered person who's going to make the same exact mistakes again and put business with Big Pharma over our best interest. What's going on, everybody? God bless you. We're going to go over that video, the Klaus Schwab and Donald Trump one from January 2020 in a second. And I hope you stay till the end, because in my hands right here, this is the legislation for the contraceptive bill. And the Democrats scream, contraceptives, they're taking it away. They're taking away contraceptives. The Republicans are trying to send us back into the Stone Age. And everybody on social media believes that. They say, oh my God, I kind of am conservative, but I don't know what they're doing. And most people literally don't know what they're doing. So I printed out the entire bill. I highlighted it, and we're going to go over exactly why I believe this contraceptive bill is absolutely deceptive, backwards, and not a good idea for actual public health. We're going to go over that later, so please stay tuned for that, because I think this is going to be a nice little expose on what the bills really mean, and hopefully some Democrats and liberals wake up and realize just because someone says something and they put it on a bill doesn't mean that's actually what the bill says and it's for your best interest. So please stay tuned for that. I think it's going to be even more telling than my first segment. We're going to talk about this video. It came out 2 months before the lockdown. Donald Trump went to Davos, and, I guess he hung out with Klaus Schwab, shook his hand, and said, he's done a fantastic job. So I think, to be completely fair, if you just go to Davos, if you're the president, I get it. All the world leaders, all the business people are there. So I'm not going to fault somebody for just going there. However, him saying Klaus Schwab's doing a fantastic job, I mean, if you're into like a global, one system where we don't have American sovereignty, then he's doing a good job. But if you believe in American sovereignty, not so much. So I'm going to tell both sides of what people are saying just to try to be as fair as I can be. And then I'm going to tell you what I think really needs to be driven home. So a lot of people who love Trump and defend Trump say, well, tell the full context of that clip. Yes, he shook his hand. Yes, he said Klaus Schwab's doing a great job. However, Trump then went and railed against the global establishment in his speech at Davos. Obviously, a lot of people are saying the opposite. It doesn't matter. He said what he said. Here's my point that I've been trying to drive home, and I think I'm one of the main people trying to get people to talk about this. I just want right-wing journalists to do their job and give Trump a real interview. Ask Donald Trump, why did you hire a pharmacy lobbyist for the head of HHS? Saying you want to fight the Great Reset would be like, you know, in the pharma world, it's part of it. Climate change, pharma world, there's all these sort of ways, social justice. There's all these ways that they exploit our good emotions and intentions and use it to take away power and sovereignty from us. So it would be like putting Bill Gates at the head of, you know, the EPA, the Environmental Protections Agency, or whatever it's called. Like, you could say you're fighting the Great Reset, but putting a pharmacy lobbyist at the head of the entire health industry in America would, in my opinion, be equivalent of putting someone like a Bill Gates or a Democrat to lead the environmental charge on America. It's like, you could say you're fighting the Great Reset, but clearly you're not if you're putting pharmacy lobbyists at the head of the health agency. You're setting us up for failure. So this is all I'm asking. I understand that, you know, Trump is better than Biden. I understand why people like him more. He's more authentic. He's funnier. Biden is like a senile puppet who just wants some ice cream. But somebody on the right wing, I'll just keep doing it. I don't care. Somebody's got to ask this man the question, why did you take $1 million from Pfizer and Bank of America? Why did you go from a vaccine skeptic who was skeptical about the safety of vaccines into a full-blown vaccine salesman? Did the $1 million donation from Pfizer for your inauguration have something to do with it? And how come you shut down talks with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and decided to hire a pharmacy lobbyist to head the entire health industry? That same pharmacy lobbyist, Alex Azar, was the same one who declared the emergency in January, not in March, in January of 2020. So handing the keys to our health agency to pharma ensures the type of destruction that we saw. Somebody just needs to ask him the question. So now I'm going to go over some of the criticism or some of the skepticism I get. The main talking point, I'm going to go through all of them just to kind of weigh out the logic of it. People say to me, Anomaly, Trump's a good guy, which I think can be true, possibly. He just got fooled, right? This is like the main MAGA talking point for years. Trump got fooled by his advisors. He took bad advice. He just hired bad people. He got conned by people close to him. And let's just say that that's true, right? Let's just say that Trump is this great leader who just somehow constantly always gets fooled and takes bad advice and makes these little mistakes. So if that's true, is it not our responsibility if he's going to run again in 2024? Is it not your responsibility as a taxpayer, as a Republican voter, as a citizen, to ask him if he's going to make those same mistakes again? Is it not our responsibility to ask who he's going to hire? You hired a pharmacy lobbyist in 2016, and that was one of the few people who actually stayed in this administration. He fired a lot of people, but not Big Pharma. So is it wrong to ask him, are you going to get fooled again this much? Are you going to get played by your advisors? Are you going to put a bunch of deep state swampers into big positions like you did at HHS? Why am I the bad guy for asking Trump these questions? I don't think he's learned his lesson, and so many people are just like, but he just got fooled. Okay, so let's ask him if he's going to get fooled again and ask him who he's going to put there. I don't understand the logic and the reasoning behind understanding that he got played by his advisors in 2016 through 2020, but just magically assuming that he's just not going to do that in 2024. I literally don't understand why people think that. I'm going to play this clip real quick, and then we're going to go over a few other things people have been saying to me, because Trump has been getting booed due to his vaccination talks. If you're living under a rock, or maybe you're lying to yourself, you've maybe not noticed this, but everybody else that's paying attention and likes Trump have noticed for, I think, about 2 years now. He's ran around the country saying my vaccines are like a life-saving, a miracle, one of the greatest human achievements, he said at one point. He called himself the father of the vaccine. He says that he pushed it faster than Fauci and the FDA, and he deserves the credit. And he's also gotten booed several times. With Bill O'Reilly, he got booed. In Alabama, he got booed. It's no secret that Trump is on a totally different page than his fan base in bragging about the vaccines. Meanwhile, most of his average supporters who got the vaccine don't even think as highly of the vaccine as Donald Trump does. So there's a disconnect. You could lie to yourself and get mad at me, but I'm just reporting the facts. There's a disconnect between Trump and his base with how highly he touts and brags about the vaccine and how much we want to hear about it, right? It's like you listen, I got the pleasure of listening to both him and Desantis speak at Turning Point, and Desantis right out the gate talks for 5 minutes about how he shut down mandates and how he's standing up for freedom, and Trump just doesn't talk about it barely at all. So it's like it's not something that matters to him, but it matters to the base. That's why DeSantis has gone from here to here, and there's a massive disconnect whether you want to admit it or not. So now that he's realized, this just gives you like a vision into Trump's personality. He realizes that people aren't on the same page as him, but instead of learning his lesson and backing off it, he just decides to not say the word vaccine and think that bragging about the exact same thing he used to brag about, but just not saying the word, is a way that he can weasel his way through and still not learn a lesson at all. Just take a watch. It's fascinating stuff.
We did a hell of a job, never got credit for that. More people died under Biden, you saw that. And the job we did with COVID, or as some people call it, to be more accurate, the China virus. But we did so much in terms of therapeutics, and a word that I'm not allowed to mention, but I'm still proud of that word. Because we did that in 9 months, and it was supposed to take 5 years to 12 years. Nobody else could have done it, but I'm not mentioning it in front of my people. But someday we're going to have to all sit down and have a little talk. But you know what?
So that's his new strategy, to brag about the vaccine but not get booed. Because Trump is like a genius socially. He's a great comedian. He's a great businessman. He's a great speaker. Donald Trump is a very charismatic and charming person. So he's socially intelligent enough to be like, how can I still brag about the vaccine without getting booed? And he's identified, well, I can do it if I just don't say the word vaccine and kind of weasel my way around it. So this just gives you kind of a vision into what he's doing. And this is my thing with politics. This is why I tell people to boo Ted Cruz. I actually want Ted Cruz to win against the Democrat. I don't want Democrats to win. I don't want Beto to win or all these other betas running in Texas. But I feel like this is the game that the right wing plays. They point to the left and they say, well, I'm not the left wing, and everybody just applauds them. But Ted Cruz is like sending our money to Ukraine. He's supporting vaccination segregation. All of these Republicans, Kevin McCarthy, Donald Trump, they're saying America hates socialism. But if you follow what they did in 2020, they printed more money in 2020 than has ever been printed in human history. They were like an open socialist, communist like printing machine for the Federal Reserve. So it's like you're saying you're against socialism, but you're doing socialism, but you're not as socialist as the left. So we're supposed to just get fooled by your actions and pretend like you're secretly fighting it. This is the little game they play, and this is my same strategy with Trump. I want people to boo Ted Cruz not because he's one of the worst politicians. I want people to boo Ted Cruz because sadly he's one of the better Republicans, and that just shows what a sad, sorry state our party is if Ted Cruz is one of the better ones, because he's not even that good. It's the same thing with Donald Trump. It's like clearly he's better than Joseph Biden, but he doesn't feel like he needs to learn a lesson because he's so popular. Take my word for it. If Donald Trump runs in 2024, he's the front runner and he's almost definitely going to win the nominee. I'm not delusional thinking he's very unpopular or something. He's wildly popular. He's wildly lovable. The right wing is still obsessed with him. He's still the number one rock star on the right. And if he wants to run for office, he's going to win. He knows that, so he doesn't feel like he owes anybody anything. For me, I'm not going to blame things that aren't his fault on him, but in 2020, he printed more money than anyone's ever printed. He did socialism. In my opinion, he fed into the Great Reset. He said Klaus Schwab's doing a fantastic job. He hired pharmacy lobbyists. He gave tens of billions of dollars to big pharma in a socialist scam. And I just want, as a voter, I think he deserves, to explain himself. But he doesn't have to explain himself because nobody wants him to explain himself. Because if you ask him to explain himself, right-wingers spiral and they serve as a PR team for him and say, no, don't ask him questions. It's like, okay, then let's just get fooled again and let's just do 4 years and nothing. I just don't understand the logic of it. And I know some people on Twitter are like really getting upset. People are asking questions, but I just want to do a quick comparison and then we'll get to some other talking points. And then I want to get to the contraceptive bill. Let's compare, since everybody's doing it, Ron DeSantis to Donald Trump, their Surgeon General, right? Surgeon General is one of the biggest health positions. I would say the head of HHS, which is where Trump put a pharmacy lobbyist, terrible move, deep state guy, whatever, swamper, whatever you want to call him. You can't put a pharmacy lobbyist at the head of HHS. That's like putting Bill Gates at the head of the EPA. It's a total, you want to beat the Great Reset, you're not going to do it with Trump's hirees. Anyway, besides HHS, I would say Surgeon General is like one of the biggest health positions in the country. If you look at who Ron DeSantis picked as a Surgeon General, he picked a man named Joseph Ladapo. Okay, Joseph Ladapo was a frontline doctor. He was one of the original doctors who was brave enough and honest enough to stand against lockdowns and mandates early on. So that's what Ron DeSantis did with his power. He didn't hire a pharmacy lobbyist. He didn't hire a deep state guy. He didn't hire a shill. He went and found, to Ron DeSantis' credit, you don't have to like everything he does, but to his credit, he hired a real doctor who was against mandates and wasn't just a BS pharma shill, and he put him in one of the, if not the most powerful health position in Florida, okay? Let's compare that to Trump's Surgeon General. Trump hired the fraud Jerome Adams. Who is Jerome Adams, Trump's Surgeon General? He was Mike Pence's Surgeon General, or he was Mike Pence's health commissioner or something. So I'm guessing Donald Trump just let Mike Pence put him there and said, you know, this guy's from Indiana, Google it. He's my Indiana health guy. Let's just let him take over the Surgeon General position. And Trump did. Either Trump doesn't know anything or he listened to Mike Pence. I don't know. This classic case of Donald Trump getting fooled by everybody all the time. So it's on for a voter and a Republican or whatever you want to call yourself, even if you're not, it's fair to say this is not the same thing. You know, compare like, oh, we're not supposed to talk about it. No, Ron DeSantis picked a good doctor who's not a big pharma shill, and Donald Trump picked a Mike Pence guy who's a total joker. We're not supposed to talk about it. We're not supposed to question Donald Trump, the almighty. We're just supposed to let him hire more pharmacy lobbyists and set us up for the Great Reset, and we're the bad people for questioning it. Give me a break. And here's the crazy part of like how Trump has, in my opinion, manipulated his base into only talking about the election in 2020. Let's talk about 2020. January, he apparently was working on deals with, Moderna in January of 2020. In January, he's shaking Klaus Schwab's hand saying he's doing a fantastic job. In March, Donald Trump gets with Fauci and Birx and does 15 days to slow the spread. On Easter, Donald Trump extends it. In April, Donald Trump is telling Sweden that they should stay closed like America and telling Georgia in America that they shouldn't open up early. So Trump was in on it with Fauci and Birx for over a month or 2 months. And then you talk about the CARES Act, in my opinion, was the biggest scam bill in modern history that Donald Trump proudly signed with the help of Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi, the Uniparty. Then Donald Trump did multi-billion-dollar big pharma socialism to just give power, money, and control to big pharma under an emergency. And then November comes along, but that's all Donald Trump wants to talk about. And he's brainwashed his audience into being like, the only thing that matters in 2020, Patriots, is the election. What about everything that led to the election that you were in on? You were getting along with Gavin Newsom in March and April when he was locking my state down like an authoritarian. I remember Donald Trump complimenting him, and Gavin Newsom was complimenting Trump. Trump's always getting played, apparently. It's like either he's in on it or he's just the biggest fool in the world, getting played by Gavin Newsom, getting played by Mike Pence, getting played by a Surgeon General, getting played by Big Pharma, getting played by Klaus Schwab. But he's this almighty leader that you shouldn't question, even though the biggest excuse that people make is that he's just very foolish and constantly getting fooled. What type of leader is getting fooled all the time? Imagine if Ron DeSantis was just always getting fooled all the time. And it's like, I like Ron DeSantis, he just keeps getting fooled. It's like, then clearly he's not an independent thinker that can like hold his own. So this is the point I'm trying to get to. You know, Trump complains about Mike Pence on January 6th and says that Mike Pence should have, done something for him. Who put Mike Pence there? Donald Trump, and Donald Trump put a bunch of Mike Pence's swampers into the highest positions of the health agencies. So this is the point that I'm going to get to and I'm going to drive home. I understand why people like Trump. I understand why they'd vote for him over Biden. Obviously, I did too. I understand even why people might want him back in 2024 to get some unfinished business. But I can't fathom why people think it's such a bad job for me to do what right-wing journalists refuse to do. I don't understand why people think it's such a bad thing for Alabama to boo him, or for people at Bill O'Reilly to boo him, or for people to question the Republican Party and question his motives. Because if you listen to his speeches, he's totally trying to make people think that like the last 2 years aren't in existence. Like you listen to DeSantis' speech, it's all about what's going on. You listen to Trump's speech, he's bringing it back to 2017, telling grandpa stories, acting like this whole COVID thing didn't exist, because if he were to talk about 2020 and the COVID stuff, he would have to say he was part of it, so that's why he only brags about the vaccine. He's proud of it. And this is one thing I want to let people know. He's a fantastic businessman. He's one of the best ever. He inspired me at a young age with The Apprentice. Trump is a great businessman. But here's the problem. All business isn't good business. If Trump does business with Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer and Moderna, and that goes against the American people's interests, that's not good business. And that's what he kind of did. It's like he's friends with Johnson & Johnson. He's friends with Moderna. He's so proud of himself for rushing this vaccine during an emergency with Operation Warp Speed and funneling a bunch of money to him. And I just can't fathom why people are acting like we at least shouldn't ask him a question about it and really, get an answer out of him. Because I don't think he has a plan to really change what he's doing. Why would he? He doesn't have to. Nobody holds him accountable, so he's got a free pass to the White House again. It doesn't matter. He could hire a bunch of swampers on day one, and apparently people don't care. And before I read this contraceptive bill, I just want to say one of the main talking points I've heard, besides he just gets fooled by his advisors, is that, he had this secret plan. The reason he funneled a bunch of money to Big Pharma is because he wanted to open America up quickly, and the only way to do that was to give Big Pharma money and print trillions of dollars. It's like, this is the dumbest theory. I'm not trying to be rude, but it's like, if Hillary Clinton were to do Operation Warp Speed, which she would have done, if Barack Obama would have done Operation Warp Speed, which he would have done, any Democrat or Republican puppet would have done Operation Warp Speed, because it's the greatest thing for Big Pharma ever. It's like, you have an emergency, you have no liability for side effects and injuries of this thing. We can get green light this, mRNA technology that we've been wanting to for years, but we didn't really have a way to get it out there. Like, this is not a threat to the Great Reset. This is not a threat to Klaus Schwab or Bill Gates. Like, oh yeah, that's the way he's fighting them, is by funneling a bunch of money through the Federal Reserve to Big Pharma. Like, it's the dumbest theory that is only being invented in people's heads because they can't cope with the fact that their guy is kind of in on it to an extent that they don't want to admit he's in on it. So it's like, it's literally just like it's the dumbest theory. It makes no logical or reasonable sense. Like, the only way to not get locked down for 5 years is to print trillions of dollars and give money to Big Pharma, then you should expect more money printing scams. Because if Republicans, the conservative Liberty Party, is willing to justify that lockdowns are okay and money printing's okay in order to stop a long lockdown, then you're going to get more of those, because they just now brainwashed you into like literally rejecting all reason, logic, and common sense. It makes absolutely no sense, but it's like the number one talking point among sycophants who just can't understand that Big Pharma lobbies both parties. Like, it's basic stuff. It's like, I was never a big George Bush fan, but it's like Republicans got fooled by George Bush for 8 years. Democrats got fooled by Barack Obama for 8 years. I'm George Bush and I'm going to fight the terrorists. I'm Barack Obama and change is going to come. I'm Donald Trump and I'm the billionaire who's friends with these people who's going to fight them. It's the same story. He definitely did slightly a better job, kind of, but really in 2020, I would say we lost more ground than we did under Obama. And I'm not saying I like Obama more than Trump. I still like Trump more than Obama and trust him more than Obama. But if you literally look at what happened, it's like we lost more ground, more freedom, more money. You can't just print that much money. So I'm just weirded out that so many people in unison just keep saying the same thing just to make themselves feel good about what happened. I'm going to move on, and then any questions you guys have or comments, I'm going to put a bunch up on the screen later. This is probably going to be, in my opinion, the most interesting part. I have the contraceptive bill in front of me, and as you guys know, Democrats have been, I have a lot of friends on the fence. They might vote Democrat, they might vote Republican. They're the ones that are always getting manipulated by Roe versus Wade, contraceptive bills, LGBT stuff, and they're like swing voters. And the Democrats are genius at getting swing voters on their side with some sort of emotional, they're going to ban gay marriage everywhere and don't say gay bill, contraceptive. Democrats, you have to give it to them. It's evil genius how they're able to manipulate people's emotions based off of just like a buzzword. Everything's a buzzword to them. So for anybody who actually cares, I printed out the contraceptive bill, and I'm going to go through it, read the parts of it I disagree with, and tell you why overall this is a total joke and it has nothing to do with the best interests of your health. So we'll get into that at the end, but let me just read the beginning. So a bill. It says, to protect a person's ability to access contraceptives and to engage in contraceptive, and to protect a health provider's ability to provide contraceptions, and information related to contraception. Okay, so what is a contraception according to their, term? You got to make a term, so that word means something in this bill. Contraception, the term means an action taken to prevent pregnancy, including the use of contraceptives or fertility awareness-based methods and sterilization procedures. So this includes sterilization. Isn't that great? Don't we have the right to sterilization? I guess. It names everything in here. Let's move on. It says Congress finds that the following: the right to a contraceptive is fundamental right, central to a person's privacy, health, well-being, dignity, liberty, equality, and ability to participate in the social and economic life of a nation. So, according to them, your right to sterilize yourself is just this human right that you should be able to do. Okay, now let's hear how they're talking about it here. They bring up the United Nations and the World Health Organization. So they say the right to a contraceptive has been repeatedly recognized internationally as a human right. The United Nations Population Fund has published several reports outlining family planning as a basic human right that advances women's health, economic empowerment, and equality. So they're saying that birth control and sterilization and contraception actually advances a woman's health. I'm going to get into that later. Talk to your local doctor, but do you guys know the side effects and the possible adverse events of stuff like birth control, shoving in IUDs, etc.? Like, I'm just going to get around the block because I don't want to get censored for this video. Talk to your doctor, whatever. But it's like, as a woman, your body's producing eggs, you're doing all this stuff, and then you just like shut it off with a pill. Do you think, I'm just going to ask it as a question, do you think that doesn't have any alternate effect? Is there zero risk? Do you read women's birth control and it's like, there's zero risk? I highly doubt that's how it works. But don't worry, the United Nations says it's essential to your human rights. It advances your health to just shut your body into some weird, unnatural state that it wasn't meant to be. You can't just stop having sex. You got to just shove pills in your throat. Oh, wow. That helps Big Pharma. What do you know? All right, back to the bill because it gets more interesting. I promise this is the most boring part of it, but then I'm going to get to the sauce. It says, access to contraceptives is internationally recognized by the World Health Organization as advancing other human rights such as the right to life, liberty, expression, health, work, and education. Holy upside down world, Batman. So according to the World Health Organization, contraceptives, which include sterilization and obviously not having a kid, is advancing human rights as the right to life because nothing allows life to live like contraceptives. You get, like, it doesn't even make sense. It's like the World Health Organization says contraceptives advances the right to life. I'm not even saying you can't be pro-contraceptive, but the one thing it doesn't do is advance life. Like, it blocks life. That's the whole point of it. A condom blocks life. An abortion blocks life. An IUD what? Why would they even say that? I don't even understand. Like, they're always doing this double think sort of thing. They're like, up is down, left is right, and gender doesn't exist. And it's like, okay. Then it says contraception is safe, essential healthcare. Same thing they say with vaccines. It's safe, it's effective. It's safe, it's effective. It's safe and effective. It's like, for most, sorry, I don't know why. Let me see. I don't know why my thing's getting blurry. Maybe it's because I put this up to it. Let me see. Sorry about my blurry screen. I don't know what the hell's going on. Let me try to put it back on or something. There we go. Sorry about that. So, they're saying it's a safe, essential healthcare. I just have a hard time believing that it's safe and effective for everybody. I just don't believe that that's true. I think some people do have side effects to contraceptions. They say contraception is a key to sexual and reproductive health, treating a wide array of other medical conditions. Here's the part where it gets very fascinating. Family planning improves health outcomes for women, their families, and communities, and reduces rates of maternal and infant mortality and morbidity. So this bill says, contraceptives, sorry, I have a hard time pronouncing that word, reduces rate of infant mortality. I would assume that it would do that because you're not having a kid now. So it's the same thing. It's like the same logic when they're like, your kid could grow up to be a bad person, so just abort it. Like, literally people have said that with a straight face, not just liberals too. They're like, when people have kids that they don't want to, and I get it is true to some extent, like statistically, but it does seem a little bit dark, like, just abort your baby because it might grow up to be a murderer. It's like, yeah, like, contraceptions reduce infant mortality. Yeah, if everybody sterilized themselves, infant mortality would be at 0 because no one would have kids, but that just seems a little weird. All right, this is the most interesting part to me. It says the United States has a long history of reproductive coercion, including the childbearing forced upon enslaved women, as well as the forced sterilization of black women, Puerto Rican women, indigenous women, immigrant women, and disabled women, and reproductive coercion continues to occur. So they're telling you in this bill that one of the things that they're referencing is the fact that women used to be forced sterilized. So because women used to be forced sterilized, it's your human right from the World Health Organization and America to sterilize yourself. Like, this is ridiculous. You know, it's like, well, you get what I'm saying? I don't need to repeat myself. It's just ridiculous. They mention black, indigenous, LGBTQ, women, people of color. It's like everybody but white people. We get it. You hate us. Cool. Never heard that before. Then it says the state and federal policies governing pharmaceutical and insurance policies affect the accessibility of contraceptives and the settings in which contraception are delivered. So it basically is trying to say that states are not allowed to get involved with the governance of pharmaceutical and insurance policies. Oh, I wonder who benefits from the fact that everybody gets pills shoved in their mouth, IUDs shoved in their vagina, and everybody's just like sterilizing themselves. I wonder who makes out on that. Probably Big Pharma. So long story short, you know, you read the bill versus what you hear. There's a lot of bizarre stuff in there, but this is the point I want to get to outside of whether you think this should pass or not, because at the end of the day, we're responsible for our own bodies and nobody is forcing you to take this. You know, there is no forced sterilization anymore unless you're like 4 years old and you don't know what you're doing and your parents are liberal or something. But in general, they're going to tell you that this is good for your health. It's healthy to use contraceptives. It's healthy to take birth control. It's healthy to shove in IUDs. And the reality of it, talk to your local doctor. Don't listen to me. But my perspective is people are less healthy than ever for all of these reasons. It's like instead of taking care of yourself, having discipline, like back in the day, people don't even realize, but America, it's like families used to stay together. People weren't just railing everybody they meet at an EDM concert. You know, it's like people had discipline. It's like, that's my wife. This is my partner. Obviously, there were some promiscuous people, but like logically, it's like if you don't want to have kid, don't have sex. Nowadays, it's like, you know, go to an orgy, you know, shove an IUD in and take birth control pills. But that's not going to affect your health at all because the World Health Organization said so. It's like, that's not going to affect your mental and physical and spiritual health if you're basically sterilizing yourself with a pharmaceutical pill instead of taking the harder route of just not having sex. Here, let's ask the audience, which one do you think is more healthy? I mean, we're not doctors here, but do you think it's healthier to exercise discipline and just not have sex with people you not want to have kids with? Or do you think it's more healthy to use forced sterilization to pretty much shut off your body and stop it from, you know, having the natural order of how a woman works and makes a baby? But don't worry, the bill says it's safe and effective. So long story short, I don't really care what Democrats or Republicans are saying about this stuff because there's always going to be unhealthy food available. There's always going to be, you know, contraception available probably, even if these bills get reversed, because it's probably just going to go back to state. But and there's probably going to be a place you can get it. But nowadays they give this stuff out like candy and people are taking it like candy. America's the big pharma capital of the world. Most elderly people are on a lot of pills. Most adults are on pills. Most kids are on pills. Oh, you're creative? Take Adderall. Oh, you're creative? Take Ritalin. Oh, you're a girl and you want to have sex? Just take birth control. It's like pill, 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 pill. And then you got Democrats like, oh, I want the right to do this. And you have Republicans like, we want the states to have rights. And I get the whole discussion, but this is always my overarching theme is like, none of this stuff doesn't seem all of this stuff doesn't seem like the ideal health, I would say, routine for anybody that wants to be healthy. This is the same sort of logic they have with lockdowns. We're going to lock you in your house because it's healthy. We're going to shut down your gym because it's healthy. We're taking away your job because it's healthy for you. We're taking away your school because it's healthy. Oh, kid, you're getting fatter? That's okay. We're taking away your sports because it's healthy. That's healthy? Are people stupid? Have people lost their minds? I think they have. I think people just hate Donald Trump, so they don't think. I think the right wing just obsesses over Donald Trump, so they don't think, well, I don't like Biden. Well, he fell off a bike. And it's like, yeah, we could talk about all this stuff for sure. But at the end of the day, it's bipartisan racket. It's a bipartisan big pharma corruption. It's a bipartisan joke. You know, they're all taking money. They're all selling us out. They're all pumping in these crappy foods and crappy pills and, over prescribing them. And we're just supposed to sit here and fight over, I hate Trump, I love Trump, I this Trump, I that Trump. It's like, this is how they get us. And this is my message. It's like, I'm not going to tell people what pill to take, what birth control to take or not to take. Talk to your doctor. But at the end of the day, you have this massive pill acting like your right to free speech and your right to guns is the same as your right to, shoveling pills down your throat in order to sterilize your own body. And then they're sitting there telling you that it's just completely safe. Like, for some people, I'm sure it is, but I mean, just think of how the body works. You know what I'm saying? It's about as safe and effective as locking down a bunch of kids in their house because you're afraid of a virus, and then childhood obesity spikes and people keep having more diabetes, heart disease, life expectancy goes down. Oh yeah, it's like one aspect of health you slightly maybe reduced, but every other aspect of health you're making worse. These people are such scum, and nobody cares about it because everybody's obsessed with characters. They think Trump's the villain. They think Trump's the hero. They think Obama's going to save them. They think George Bush is going to fight the terrorists. And at the end of the day, whether you vote for somebody or not, realize there's certain things that aren't changing and are never going to change because nobody talks about them. And when people do talk about them, a lot of people spiral because it's not this story they want to hear. If I sat here and said Donald Trump is a secret hero and he's sitting in the Space Force space base and he's going to hit Biden with a laser, it's like I'd probably get 4 times as many views because it's like this fake hero story from people who are brainwashed by Marvel movies who just can't think outside of the binary. It's like, I'm team red, I fight team blue. I'm team nationalist, I fight team globalist. It's like, what if the people you thought were fighting for you aren't doing as much as you thought they were going to do? I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm not saying they're horrible. I'm not saying you shouldn't vote for them if you want, but it's like, you get what I'm saying? Everything's a big fight, but the overarching theme to the contraceptives is whether it's legal or illegal, it's a human right or not. What if we actually just took care of our bodies and, exercise discipline and taught discipline to the children? I'm not sitting here moralizing because I was once 19 and 22. I mean, I'm still not that old, but I'm just saying it's like no one really explained this stuff to me. People told me it was cool to just have sex. The culture told me, even people in my family, like I didn't get like advice like, hey, you should exercise discipline. Like, no, that's cool. So how do we make it not cool? Tell the kids through music, through entertainment, parenting, etc., that it's actually like, you're more of a rock star if you're into traditional values. Like, it might not sound cool, right? It might sound boring, but at the end of the day, like, I lived through my 20s and I realized that like promiscuity doesn't bring happiness. It's not like the healthiest thing. And, I feel a lot better, healthier, and more powerful when I exercise discipline as opposed to like sterilizing myself with a pharmaceutical pill. Like, it's like not ideal in my opinion. So that's my gist on the contraceptive bill. Hopefully I could get through to some Democrats because they just spiral every time like Chuck Schumer says something and think that like every Democrat exaggeration is like the end of the world, in politics. So my computer's freezing a little. I'm going to get to your questions if I can. I clicked on the button. It's just unfortunately not loading, but I'm going to, all right. I'm going to bring some of your stuff on the screen as soon as possible. So anybody that has anything to talk about the Klaus Schwab Trump thing, let me know what you think. And I'm going to spend about 10 minutes on the screen. I want to get your opinion. If you agree with me, you disagree with me, you have a theory, I want to get all of your things on the screen. Someone said orgasms are healthy. I'm not trying to make this into a sexual show, but yeah, I agree that orgasms can be healthy, but also discipline can be healthy. It's like, you get what I'm saying? There is a benefit to being selective with your orgasms versus just orgasming all the time to anything inside of anybody. Like, discipline. I'm not out here telling people like do what you want, but there is benefit to having discipline. I don't care what anyone says, but appreciate it. Let's see. Someone said Carl Schwab gives me creeps, Klaus, but I get what you're saying. We all should be able to have boundaries on our own bodies. And in general, it's like there's always going to be like, there's going to be pills. There's going to be food. Like and this is where freedom is actually not a great thing. Like, you're free to do whatever you want. You can eat Cheetos. Like, I could sit here and eat 15 bags of Cheetos. I'm free to do that. But it's the discipline that makes you great. It's not the freedom. Like, freedom is great to have ideas. You don't want to live in a communist country where you're not allowed to think, not allowed to tell the truth. I like the freedom of speech and the right to bear arms. But as a man, as a Christian, as a human being, as an American, as a whatever you are, whether you're Muslim, Jewish, whatever, greatness comes from not just what you do, but what you don't do. So it's like, yeah, freedom is good. And there's, even if contraceptives or whatever, it's like we need the discipline it's the same thing, they're going to have all of these, candies, for lack of a better word, and temptations, but it's our job to pick and choose what we can. I'm not saying to be perfect, but it's like me. I don't go to the gym 3 times a day, but if I go 4 times a week, that's better than 0. If you don't go to the gym at all, it's better to go once, So it's like, this is the game I'm playing. It's like, there's always going to be all these temptations for us, and, people are going to want some things. I'm not, life, I like to have fun. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a stick in the mud, but, picking and choosing our situations is what makes people happy and great. What do you guys think about the Klaus Schwab and Trump video? You think I want to get to that. Let me see this real quick. Bissy said, thank you for speaking out in support of abstinence. Well, and then I'm going to read the Trump thing. I understand it sounds weird. This is just my personal experience. I know maybe I talk too much and I say too much on my live streams, but I've gone through phases where I thought it was the coolest thing to just have sex all the time as much as I want. And now I'm going through a phase where I actually think it's cool to not have sex and be more selective with who you're, getting intimate with. And I think I feel better. I feel happier. I'm less stressed out. I've had scares where I thought I got someone pregnant or something, and I've gone through that, and it sucks. Honestly, that's like one of the worst things I've ever dealt with, was freaking myself out about sexual situations. God is great. Everything worked out for me. Like, nothing bad ever happened. But, I feel so much more at peace because I'm not having sex with like just random people and stuff. So I'm just being honest, because I know I have more options than I've ever had in my life, but I'm more selective than I've ever been in my life. That's just my own personal story. So someone said, is Trump possibly doing the whole work through the system in order to expose the corruption and then beat it through the revolt of people, or could he really be as crooked as the globalists? I mean, that's up to your interpretation. I personally think that he has pros and he has cons, but I just believe that people need to question him. This is my personal belief. Like, I don't, I go back and forth between thinking like, he's just very stubborn and gets fooled, or, I personally don't think he's just exposing them. I think he's working with them. Like, I don't think he hired a pharmacy lobbyist to expose a pharmacy lobbyist. I think he hired a pharmacy lobbyist to empower Big Pharma because he got money and power from there. You get what I'm saying? So it's not to say he's the worst person in the world, but if you want to fight back against Big Pharma, you do what Ron Desantis did, and you hire a non-pharmacy shill for the highest position in the land, because then they have power. You can't hand the whole health department to Big Pharma. Like, dude, that sucks that Trump did that. So in my opinion, no, he's not doing that to expose them. He's doing that to either make a mistake or empower them. But either way, I just feel like it's our job as voters, taxpayers, and even supporters to call him out about that. I want to read this real quick. I didn't even realize Klaus and Trump had met. Well, here's the thing. If Trump and Klaus had met, and Trump didn't say he was doing an amazing job, and then Trump went on to like really crush it, then it's like, whatever. I don't like to hold people accountable. Oh, you took a picture, you talked to them. I think Trump has every right to go to the World Economic Forum and do what he wants, but he said Klaus is doing a fantastic job. Like, what? That's not true, in my opinion. And then he went on to print a bunch of money, give Big Pharma a bunch of money, shill Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, and Pfizer. You get what I'm saying? It's like actions speak louder than words. So I'm willing to forgive him for meeting Klaus Schwab, but his action, in my opinion, it's his actions. Like, he says he's fighting globalism, then he says Klaus is doing a fantastic job. Then he prints a bunch of money, and then he says America will never be a socialist nation. That, it's like he's like an anomaly where he's always doing all these things. But I just hope that I hope the base gets a little tougher, but there's like full-time people. I don't know if they're paid by Trump or they just love Trump. They're like full-time Trump apologists, and they're trying to get people to think that like it's bad to ask him a question. If I run for office and I put a pharmacy lobbyist at the top position, you should question me. You get what I'm saying? Obviously, I want you to like me. I'm not like an alien where it's like, oh, I want people to hate me. No, just like everyone else, I want to be loved too. Trump wants to be loved, right? Everybody wants to be liked at a certain point. But here's the thing. If I run for office and I hire a pharmacy lobbyist like Trump did, I don't want you to think I'm charismatic and I'm nice and just to trust me. I would want you to do real journalism and say, Anomaly, I appreciate some things you've did, but why the hell did you put a pharmacy lobbyist at the top position in the government in the health industry? Isn't that no one's asked him that question, guys. I'm the only one just railing it over and over. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is one person as well. Nobody wants to ask the guy. He just roll out the red carpet, MAGA, 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 act like nothing's ever happened, and it's just weird to me. I'm not asking for people to be mean to Donald Trump. It's like, ask him the question. I'm not above a question. If you have a question about something I did in the past or now, politically, ask me. I'm not above it either. We all make mistakes, but mistakes repeat themselves when people don't think their mistakes are mistakes. Nope. Like it's not like he turned over a leaf and said, oh yeah, Big Pharma is kind of corrupt. He's the biggest vaccine salesman and PR team. Trump has been a PR team for Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson for the past 2 years. Nobody's done more to cover up their corruption than Trump. He's like, oh, it's so great, it saved the world. Like, no, that's not a narrative that's going to free us from the Big Pharma tyranny, giving them money and defending them as if they're great. He's not going to talk about adverse events and side effects because he's in on it. You get what I'm saying? It's not the leadership we need right now. But nobody wants to admit it, where it's like, obviously I put God above man, but I'm a team player. If I'm not the captain of a team, I'm going to rally behind the leader. For 3 years, I rallied behind Donald Trump because he really was that dude. It was clear to me that he's doing a good job. Get behind the leader. I can't follow a man that I look as morally, spiritually, and, I would say ethically weak. And that's how I view Trump as right now. He's still charismatic. He's still funny. He's still better than Biden. He still serves a role in this community. But I can't follow around a leader that I consider leading. I think he's leading people to demise, to hell, to lies. I'm not. It's past the point of me wanting to follow this guy because I don't. I think Desantis is doing a good job. I think there's people online that are doing great work and interesting journalism. Tucker's doing a decent job, but Trump, to me, he's not even a top 100 conservative right now as far as ethically and morally. I respect Matt Walsh more than I respect Donald Trump now. 3 years ago, Matt Walsh isn't even on my radar, and I love Trump. It's just the leadership we need right now. He's on the wrong side of the biggest scandal in modern history, and he's serving as a PR team for the industry that's corrupt. I just can't get behind that. I don't care how many people get mad at me. I don't care how many people lie about me. I don't care how many weak-minded influencers just threaten me or say something. I don't care. I'm not doing it. I'm not buyable. I'm not corruptible. I'm not the left can't buy me, the right can't buy me, the Trump people can't buy me. I'm going to say what I think as long as I can. So, pressure can come from all sides. It can come from the mainstream media. It can come from the loser gremlin fact checkers who have way too much power. And it could also come from, right-wing organizations. But it's I don't get my power. And this is where I appreciate you guys. I'm not saying this just to I'm literally, I mean this. My power, the power that I have, first of all, comes from God, I believe, but it comes from you. No, I'm not knocking, but Prager, you didn't give me my platform. Turning Point USA didn't give me my platform. You guys gave me my platform by sharing my videos. I don't have a bunch of advertising money. I spent $0 in the past 4 years on advertising. Everything I've gotten is from you, so they can't take away what I've gotten because they didn't give it to me. That's the thing. A lot of people were given their power from certain organizations or certain political people, so they feel a loyal duty to be well, and I get it. But they didn't give me anything. I think I got my power from telling the truth. So in my opinion, I lose my power from telling the truth. It's if all you did is said, and I'm not knocking people, but if you said MAGA, 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 and you just rally behind Trump and never question him for 4 years, then if you start questioning him, you're going to get way more blowback than me because you've built an audience of just saying one thing. I've always done this type of journalism for 4 or 5 years. So it's I'm kind of the opposite. If I stop telling the truth, I'm going to be in trouble. Like, my audience is not dumb. I mean, there's going to be people that are upset at me, like few, but overarchingly, like, if I make a mistake, my audience is on it. I'm not bragging, but it's like, I think you get what you put out. And because I put out these vibes and this information, I've gotten a massive audience of people who are seeking the truth. They're, if I start, doing something in one direction too much, people are like, dude, like, I like you, but you're doing too much of that. So it's like, I don't get my power from lying on behalf of the Republican Party. I get my power from telling the truth. If that's defending Trump for 3 years, then I'm going to defend Trump for 3 years. If that's, calling out the media, I'm going to call out the media. If that's telling the truth about Trump's big pharma connections, that's what it is. So I'm not really worried about the backlash, because despite what people might think of me, I haven't built my audience from doing one thing. I built my audience from getting to the core of what's going on. I defended Trump from Russia collusion because, in my opinion, that was a BS narrative to try to entrap Trump and to try to escalate tensions with Russia while delegitimizing Trump's presidency, because Trump was clearly more open-minded and more loose than any politician recently. So it's like, that's why I defended Trump. It's not like I did it because I'm just going to shill for the Bush family. I'm just like, dude, they're lying. I did all that. You go back and look at my research. I'm not just repeating Fox News. I'm like, this is Russia collusion. Oh, they posted Bernie Sanders ads on a Russian page on Facebook. It's like, it never even made sense. I got more reach in a week than all of these Russian posts did in a year. That swayed the election, a Bill O'Reilly ad with a devil face on it. You get what I'm saying? The media narrative around Trump was a joke. So I defended him. They lied about everything he did for the whole time. So it's like, this creates this sort of weird thing where then if Trump signs this crappy omnibus bill and I talk about it, then, at first it's like, what's going on? But I've tried to do that the entire time. It's just, for the first couple years, it was really hard to say too much about Trump because the media was lying so much. A lot of us were lost in the sauce, but also, he didn't do too much bad. Like, I'm not out of like, oh, I need you to do a million things. Dude, the lockdown is when I really started doing way more journalism against him, because that's not just like a little thing. Like, dude, March 2020, we're all locked in our house and Trump, Pelosi, and McConnell just open up the Federal Reserve and print trillions of dollars. Like, that was pretty bad, And it's not to say he's fully to blame, but that's the whole reason I started going way harder, because I'm like, it's not like he just coasted for 4 years. Like, that was one of the biggest, corrupt takeovers in modern history, if not like ever. I mean, that was the craziest thing I've ever witnessed. Hopefully they never do that again. Let me see. Let's read some stuff. But I appreciate y'all. Someone said, unfortunately, Bill O'Reilly sold out. I don't know much about Bill O'Reilly. He was like before my time. Someone said maybe Anomaly can interview Trump. That would be awesome. I would like to, but here's the thing. I don't even need the clout of it. I'm calling out to conservatives. I don't care if you get all the attention and you take credit for it. You could even pretend that you thought of this, because it's not even a thing that I invented. Just ask them the question. Anybody, ask Trump this question. Why did you hire a pharmacy lobbyist? Why did you take $1 million from Pfizer? Did that influence your decision? And who do you plan to put, if you win again, who do you plan to put as your Surgeon General in HHS because you picked the big pharma people last time? Just ask them that question. Is that so crazy? I'm this crazy guy. Come on, guys. This is like basic stuff. And this is what is interesting about Trump, is like, he has this clout that nobody has. Like, George Bush, like, it's like, no, don't ask him. It's like, no, ask him, He deserves more respect than other people, but I don't know, man. I'm not trying to be a dick, but I look at other things other presidents have done, and you could trace a few good things back to Bill Clinton. I'm not saying Bill Clinton was great, but Bill Clinton did a lot of conservative things. George Bush and Bush Jr. put in Clarence Thomas and Alito. Clarence Thomas and Alito are better Supreme Court justices than Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett. Is that my fault for real? So it's like all these little wins Trump got. They're like, he put in federal judges. Yeah, so did George Bush. He put in Supreme Court justices. So did the Bushes. Like, so it's like, at the end of the day, it feels like the MAGA base is projecting this narrative that really just simply wasn't even true. Trump helped build a wall, that didn't get finished, but whatever. He tried to. That was a good idea. I think that was long overdue, building a wall. Getting along with North Korea. that was great. That was long overdue. Helping to de-escalate the war in Syria and defund rebel groups, that was massive. Donald Trump deserves massive credit for his foreign policy in Syria. He did a lot of great things, but, at the end of the day, I weigh them all up, and I'm like, if I listen to, like, MAGA speakers, they act like he did, and then I look at, like, what really happened. I'm like, there was definitely some wins there, but there was also a year full of losses in 2020 that, we should not allow to happen again, but whatever. Someone said, praise God, stop exalting man. I'm all for complimenting people, but I want to ask journalistic questions. That's all. I'm not trying to tear the guy down. I'm not trying to hate on him. It's not a personal thing. I just want somebody on the right to ask him a journalistic question. The left just lies about Trump and the right just wipes his butt. That's just how it is. When Trump goes on right-wing shows, they don't challenge him. When Trump goes on left-wing shows, they spiral like full-blown psychopaths. And this leaves this void for like people that are like, okay, you lie about him, you wipe his butt. Can anybody ask him a legit question? No. I would love to interview him, but if I don't, somebody can. I don't care. I don't need, I don't need the opportunity. It would be great, but honestly, I would be just as happy if someone else asked him that question. I keep throwing it out there because I want somebody to pick it up, And people are. The Hodge twins get it. Bryson gets it. Dude, I'm not, everything, the internet's like this world wide web. We're all building off each other. We're all feeding each other information. It's a beautiful thing, but, I'm putting this out into the sphere and some people are picking it up. And a lot of things that I'm putting out there, it's not like I invented these thoughts. Somebody blessed me with the information at a certain point. It's not like I just figured this out, in my dream. It's like I watched Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talk about it. I watched, other channels tell me information I didn't know. So, that's what it is. It's all love. It's just like there are a lot of right-wing influencers picking it up. But then there's a lot that are trying to close that door and just act like we shouldn't talk about it. But it's like, I would be fine with Trump winning as long as I was sure he learned his lesson. I'm not somebody that's like, oh, you had your chance and now you never deserve it again. But at the same time, it's like I do think if he can fully prove that he's not going to do all these dumb mistakes again, I'm down. But how are we even going to know what he thinks? No one asks him. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's asked him this stuff. I want to know his draft sheet, like a basketball team. Here's my starting lineup. Who's Trump's starting lineup? Is it going to be Alex Azar and Mike Pompeo again? You know what I'm saying? Probably. He's probably going to put Mike Pompeo in office again. And that's not, Mike Pompeo seems like a nice guy, but, do I trust Mike Pompeo? Not really, but I don't hate him. But he's talking about the liberal world order as well. I'm going to play that clip again real quick. We got all over Biden administration for saying liberal world order, rightfully so. Here's that clip of, I saved it from my last stream. I know I played it, but a lot of people weren't here. Let me see. Oh, great. Am I frozen? I don't know. I might be frozen. This, unbelievable. But if I'm not, I'm going to play that clip. Let's see. Sorry about that if something happened, but here's the clip of Pompeo.
The first 2 years of the Trump administration demonstrate that President Trump is not undermining these institutions, nor is he abandoning American leadership. Quite the opposite. In the finest traditions of our great democracy, we are rallying the noble nations of the world to build a new liberal order that prevents war and achieves greater prosperity for all.